Hello, everybody in Clashland. Welcome to the very first Town Hall Hour live stream. I'm Community Manager Darian, and with me is...
Game lead Eino. I'm actually thinking I should try to make that imitation of the laughing face I have in the intro thing.
It is a rather warm smile. So I hope everyone's doing okay out there. The reason why we're doing this, I hope everybody's staying safe out there during this turbulent time around the globe. We kind of want to show that, we're working at home just like you guys. So what better way to talk about Clash of Clans than hosting an actual live stream so we can kind of all hang out together and just, talk about all things Clash and hopefully reveal some interesting tidbits about Clash development, maybe, reveal some secrets that have never seen the light of day and just kind of have some fun and hang out a bit. So how's that sound to you, Eino?
Sounds great.
So you may have noticed that yesterday we celebrated Supercell's 10th anniversary. That means Supercell as a company has been around for 10 years. And this year, Clash is going to be hitting 8 years this summer. But more importantly, there is a bigger milestone. Today is my 3rd anniversary with the Clash team. So
hey, congratulations, man.
But before we get started, I have 2 important messages. So I was kind of given a heads up on this, and I first wanted to give a shout out to Anushka, our community manager, who's tolerated us for so long and put up with so much of our nonsense that, she deserves a lot of credit for, maintaining her sanity. And the other one, it goes out to our forum moderator, Locke, just because he dared me to do it and said I wouldn't do it. So those are 2 shout outs. So to kind of kick this off, as part of the community, we do a lot of dev videos, and I'm involved in the community a lot. So the community knows a lot about, what I do. But, you're the game lead. And the only thing people know about you is you're the guy who came out in the Yeti costume or the Super Barbarian costume. So I think the community would like to know, what exactly is a game lead? What is your role on the Clash team?
I see it as more than anything. I think I see my role as a facilitator of sorts. So I've described it in the past in a way where we have people. We try to get the best people to work on everything at Supercell, and then we need to give those people a lot of freedom. Usually, everything just kind of gets decided without my involvement, but then it's my responsibility to try to kind of squeeze the decision out of the team if that decision is not forthcoming. And in the end, it's my responsibility to make sure decisions get made, but it's not really me that's deciding. I'm just facilitating the process and making sure people are happy and feel good at work and that we get stuff done.
So how involved are you with the actual the designing of the game? Or, because I know you've worked on, whenever we're working on an update, I see you face down in a spreadsheet, putting stuff into the game. It's kind of a very umbrella type of role, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's also kind of the way we work at Supercell. It's like you can stick your nose into a lot of things, and I'm pretty active in that way. That I like actually developing new skills and learning new things. But my background is in game design, so naturally that I still kind of gravitate towards that. And I've had less time for it, being a lead, but luckily we have other people in the team who also kind of share that burden and do a lot of work on that.
So know enough just to be dangerous.
Yes, exactly. Very dangerous. Excel sheets. Look, guys, there's numbers. It's proven. We need to do it. And then they always say no, and I don't understand why.
And you've been on the team about as long as I have, about 3 years, right?
Yeah, a little bit less. I think you joined a couple of months before I did.
Yeah. So how'd you end up on the Clash team anyway?
I was working on Boom Beach for a year or so after I joined Supercell. and I remember the Clash lead at the time coming to talk to me, asking if I could join the team, and then it happened, and then we had talked about like, okay, like he would want to move to do something else at some point, and that then he was asking like, okay, so if I would go like in a year or like year and a half, if I move somewhere, would you be willing to consider also taking on the lead responsibility? I was like, yeah, okay, maybe let's talk about it. And then I think had been in the Clash team for like 3 months when he went like, okay, so there's a really big need in a new game team. They need my help, so I'm going now. Here are the keys to the house. Don't burn it down. Good luck.
So this kind of perfectly coincides timing-wise with, I guess we can call it our Clash's second renaissance, where the game went through a ton of changes from like clan games to season challenges. The team was fairly re-energized because we had quite a lot of new people on the team. How much, I guess, how much would you attribute to just the amount of fresh energy into the game? What do you think attributes to that?
I think whenever people work on a game for very long, it's really hard to sort of stay energized. I think it's the same in every project, like all projects in different fields as well. Like I think it's the same thing. Like when you work on something for too long, you stare at it for too long, it becomes hard to kind of keep on innovating and keep on kind of coming up with new ideas and new angles. So I think that really helped when we changed. Like quite a few people changed, and then you always get this injection of fresh ideas and fresh energy more than anything else. And I think we found a really good groove with the group of people that we had, and we really like each other, and we work really well together, I think.
We do.
Don't talk about the functional stuff.
I think the Clash team is in a really good place right now. I mean, there's a lot of energy, a lot of communication, and just a lot of passion for what we do on the team. And how many people on the Clash team right now? 20?
21, I think, at the moment.
Okay. Do you think right now, like, because we're all working from home, obviously, this is my home office. You're working from your home office right now. Has that changed how we make the game at all?
Not really. I think working remotely is a bit more challenging when it comes to communication. But it's when you have we've worked together more or less with the same team. I guess, yeah, it's not really true. There's been a lot of changes, but the core of the team has been pretty static. So we've worked together for almost 3 years now, and that really helps in sort of knowing how other people think and get kind of just smooth things along. So you have an easier time working together, and that doesn't really break when you go start working from home. I think, like, if you have that base to work from, I think it works out pretty well, even like this. Although it's not optimal.
There's also a level of implicit trust that, especially within Supercell itself, that kind of makes it easier to work remotely because we trust people are working towards the best interest of the game and the company.
Yeah, I think it's also when you know where you're going that it's easy to work remotely. But
yeah,
I think it's going to be more challenging when we start working on some super new exciting stuff later in the year.
Wait, what? Later in the year?
But yeah, it's like it's good to get together at some point face to face, because you can't really replace that with anything. Like just spending more time and talking about stuff freely instead of in a Skype call or a Zoom meeting or
So that actually kind of brings up something that a lot of people tend to ask us, and it's how do we actually, make Clash of Clans? When we want to come up with a new feature, whether it's when we were working on Town Hall 13 or clan games or season challenges, I think there's a very common misperception if you don't work in game development on how games are actually made. So when we want to make a new feature in the game, let's say, for example, if we wanted to make a brand new troop, what exactly is the design process? How do we go about making the troop from concept to implementation in the game?
I think in most cases it usually starts with some kind of a need. Like we feel that there's a need for something in the game. Something isn't working the way we want it to work, or we don't like something in particular and don't think it's a great experience for everyone. So usually there's a need that we start from. With new troops specifically, it's depends a little bit, but there as well we kind of maybe usually identify a gap in sort of what would be interesting gameplay to kind of add. Where is a gap, and then we try to sort of make something interesting that slides into that gap. And that space with troops, there's a lot of stuff there already, and it's harder and harder as time goes by to expand on that without actually adding new layers of mechanics on it. So at some point, I think we have to probably introduce something new, and like a new layer to the mechanics as well, that allows us to sort of push into a new direction. But yeah.
At the same time, correct me if I'm wrong, but we want to try to avoid something that's also too niche and too unique. It's got to be relatable.
Yeah, because
right?
I think there's always a tension here where there's a lot of people who've played the game for years and they love the game and they're really good at it and they're really high level. But then you've got to remember that we also have a lot of players just starting every day, starting the game. Even 8 years in, we have a lot of players who are starting the game just from Town Hall 1 and starting to work their way up. And I think that's our challenge, is to make content that is approachable to everyone. And I think that's the bar we try to meet, always make things that are sort of balanced in that they still are interesting to the veteran players, but then they're approachable enough for the newbies.
So that means during the design process, we test out a lot of different things, like different troop ideas. For example, when we worked on Town Hall 13, I think there were 2 or 3 different troop ideas that we had proposed, and it only came down to one, which was just the Yeti. Do you remember how many troop ideas we had?
I think we prototyped 4 different troops, and then we just kind of gravitated towards the Yeti out of those.
Do you remember what the 4 were? Because I remember the Yeti. There was also the Yeti kind of started out as some weird elixir monster, but the other ones we had several other ones before that, right?
Well, I'm always pitching to put in the golden dragon from the single player levels in as a troop, but no one ever liked that idea.
It's commonly requested.
And people always shoot it down, and I don't understand why. They say something like it's going to be OP or whatever. It's it's really, I don't know. I would just want to do that. Well, I don't know. I think what did we have actually?
There was the guy with a hammer that kept getting bigger.
Yeah, that's that guy. So we prototyped a dude who basically levels up as the battle goes on. So whenever he's whacking away at buildings, he sort of gets bigger every X hits. The problem with that guy was that he was a crazy snowballer, totally unstoppable if you got him over a certain point. And then on the other hand, he was totally useless if you didn't get him to level up early. So it turned out to be a little bit too difficult to understand in that way. But the funny thing about gameplay, like troop iterations, I think, is there's always these ideas to make a comeback, and maybe they're actually usable. You just have to find the right balance in the complexity versus so.
But even the final version of a troop may not, or it may be completely different from where it originally started. For example, let's use the Yeti as example. So when it was first proposed, we actually have a screenshot of what the Yeti was originally looked like. So this is what the Yeti first looked like when it was originally concepted. It was meant to be like a giant elixir-wielding goblin, and then it kind of morphed into a second concept. We've got that here. There he is. So that was the second version, where instead of the Yeti mites, he had a bunch of different elixir spirits inside his weapon. So these were original concepts done by our artist for the development of the Yeti, and they're kind of cool looking, but in the end, we end up settling for the cute fuzzy thing that you got dressed up as in the dev video.
I think those guys were back then. We were thinking that the Yeti mites would get released when the Yeti actually hit something, and I think even before that, we were thinking of the Yeti as like it went kind of back and forth. We were thinking of the Yeti as an elixir monster. Before Royale actually did it, the elixir monster, we had this elixir monster idea where you shoot at it and it breaks into smaller and smaller pieces, and then those pieces attack. I prototyped that version very early on, like I think a year and a half ago, where I had I think it was like a golem that broke into hog riders afterwards. Like I scaled the hog riders down to be smaller, and then there was like 10 of them, and it was crazy OP, of course, crazy OP. People loved it, and then I think there we sort of like okay, this has some potential, and we worked on it, and then in the end it turned out to be the Yeti.
So, and this kind of highlights just how creative, creating troops can be. Just over the last 3 years that I've been on the team, like we've seen so many different troop ideas, concepts. I remember there was a goblin glider at some point, but so before this live stream, I actually asked one of the artists, like, what are some cool concept pieces that never saw the light of day in the game? Another one was something like a Viking chariot or barbarian chariot. So I think we've got a concept for that one here.
Maybe?
Yeah. There we go. So that was obviously just a rough sketch. And from what I understand, and given that, the most of the team that worked on this has moved on to other projects, the artist told me that I guess this was supposed to be some chariot flying air unit that shoots Tesla bolts from the clouds as he flew by. And there was some additional concept work done later on the second one. So as you can see, kind of the chariot Tesla shooting thing off to the left, and that was being the character riding it. So after talking with Monica, our community manager, she was saying that, there was a period where the artists were just coming up with so many different concepts that they were just coming up with art pieces before there was even a need for it in the game. It was just literally like, here's a cool idea, here's something else, and let's see if we can find a niche for them. So we've got this archive of cool troops that just, we've never actually put in the game. But at this point, like, I think we've kind of honed that process down quite a bit to determine, what exactly is that we need in the game, and visually, like, how is that going? Do you feel that we determine the looks after we find the need, or is it kind of like a hand-in-hand organic process?
It can flow from both directions, and we've done it in the past where the looks of the troop exist before the mechanics of the troop come along. Development-wise, it's a bit risky, because usually when we prototype something and we get the troop into the game, we found out that something doesn't quite work and we need to change it. And if that change sort of touches the core mechanics, then you're in trouble, because the art is already made, and suddenly you have something that, we have to somehow fit it into this art style. Like, if we have the mechanics first, then we can do a change, for example, where we say, like, well, what if it isn't like a melee character? What if it is a ranged character instead? And we can just flexibly change it. So usually we would prefer to approach from that direction, where we can be flexible with the mechanics and figure those out first, and then find the concepts for it. But it can actually work from both directions.
Didn't the Yeti, one of the early concepts, be a giant minion who was too big to get off the ground? Do you remember?
No, I don't think. I think that was a different troop. I think that was probably for a concept for the giant minion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just basically like if the giant minion would be flying, or
Right.
if it actually would be too big to not get off the ground. So
yeah, he's a big beefy boy. Um, for everybody who's watching, before I forget, make sure you stay tuned till the very end. We've got a little surprise that we'd like to share with you. So if you've been with us so far and you see this message, make sure you stick around to the end. We've got a little something for you. So one of the things that we wanted to do on this live stream is really touch upon and just kind of discuss some of the hot issues and things, the hot topics that clashers around the world are talking about. So we know that there are a lot of important questions. Before we start pulling them from the community itself, so I figured we kind of address some of these issues first. So we already announced that we've got a balance change coming up in the near future. We've made announcements that what's going to be changed. One of the burning questions that we get is, how do we determine when a balance change is actually needed, and how do we go about balancing it?
That's a good question. I wish I knew.
I think I've seen you guys rolling dice and just like, you know what? Let's just nerf this today. Is that not how it works?
I think most of the input comes from a couple of different places. We definitely follow what people are saying about the different troops. Like anecdotally, we follow what troops are actually being used in different parts of the game. So we of course have analytics that give us information, like direct information of how popular different troops are and how the win rates are with certain troop types. Like if you have these troops in your army, how often do you win? And then we look at those to sort of balance the troops. And then on the same kind of in a similar vein, we look at the 3-star percentages of different town hall levels to see if the town hall balance is kind of okay or not, to try to kind of tweak that balance and make the game so that you can actually have fun while not being the best attacker in the world, but also to keep the game really competitive for the top end who really like the challenge.
So basically a mix of community feedback and data-driven analytics.
Yeah, and of course we all actually play the game quite actively, and we have some really, really skilled players in the team. And yeah, those opinions also get into the mix. But it's kind of a mixed bag of inputs that go into the balancing decisions. Sometimes it's very kind of, we want to change an interaction, for example, or sometimes it's more general where we just want to make something easier and more fun, or we need to increase the challenge level somewhere.
So when you say talented players, clearly you don't mean you or I.
No, we're not talented players. Sorry.
So we rely on those talented players.
I hope you weren't really thinking that we were, because
no. I have no illusion about my skill. Like I'm almost a max Town Hall 12. I want to say my clan is in the war leagues. I want to say Masters 3. So we were doing okay. We just have a lot of people attacks. So where are you guys at? Because I know you've got a clan.
Yeah. So we have a clan, of course, with where a lot of the team members are, and I think we're in Crystal 2 or something. And we were horribly inactive. Like people always miss this. Like we go into war leagues with 30 people, and then we get maybe 23 attacks on average in. So people are fairly active. There's always like 7 people who don't attack. So I think this is as high as we can go. Like there's no going higher than that.
But we, for example, our designer Petri and also our community manager Monica, who have a finger on the pulse of the competitive scene, work with a lot of our YouTubers. We rely on their expertise to kind of help us understand, where the meta is, what needs to be balanced. So their feedback is absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, especially so in the very top levels where we need to keep the game competitive, because it's not really fun if everyone's 3-starring all the villages in all the wars. Because then you get wars where it just ties because everyone has perfect score. So there is this kind of tension there as well, where we need to keep the top end somewhat balanced, and like balanced in a way that it's not too easy. Which of course is the game is actually more fun, I think, if you can get successes. So we try to make the earlier town hall levels a little bit more relaxed and let more people actually get some stars, because people need to have fun.
What you mean, El Primo wasn't a good troop?
It was a great troop. I had a lot of fun with that. I got a lot of successes with that as well.
He was a little bit overpowered. Well, and that actually does.
Maybe.
Well, that actually does bring up an interesting point about how, as game developers, we approach balance. Obviously, as a player, when something is super OP and you're beating everybody, it can feel like a lot of fun, even though it does kind of remove the feeling of accomplishment reward because it becomes so easy. But that has a huge impact on the meta, where if something is so overpowered, everybody ends up using that same combination, and you lose a lot of the variety of different troops that are available in the game. And you agree that that's something that can be hurtful to the meta and the game environment, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's like that. If something is very overpowered, then the meta just shifts into a direction where everyone is using that thing, and it becomes pretty stale in a way. And it's not really interesting if there's just one solution to a problem, which is how to get 3 stars. So
Right.
in the perfect world, we would have a balanced field where there's a lot of room for creativity and like sort of army design and different strategies to kind of emerge. And especially because layouts are different approaches to cracking different villages. So one army would work against another village and another army against a different village. That would be something that we would love to see.
And that also brings up another interesting point, is that because the players themselves are so creative and ingenious with their base design, we can't predict every single infinite iteration of how players will design bases. So we may design a troop or a unit with a certain function, but under a certain base development, like that may completely change how the meta works. So it does require us. I have a special guest.
Oh no!
Not happy.
Everybody, this is Loki. Say hi, Loki. This is my his international debut. He's not very happy right now. I don't know why. He's usually pretty happy on here. Okay, Loki, go on.
I wonder what he was doing before you dragged him in. It's like,
He was
I was minding my own business, and then they came to me.
He was pawing at my door, wanting to get in.
Oh.
So what was it? Oh, so because we can't account for every single player's idea, that we may have an idea of like how one thing may go, and after how many different infinite variations of how players come up with bases, that troop may not function or may function better than we originally thought, and therefore it requires some additional balance to the game. So, and because players are infinitely creative, we have to kind of keep an eye on that to make sure that the game remains as challenging and competitive in return, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think the big, we're also just human, so we definitely make mistakes, and sometimes there is stuff that we don't see. It goes into the game. We're also very, the team is just 20 people. We have one guy testing this stuff. Of course, we work with other people to test it as well, and we work with the community to test it as well. But yeah, collectively, we'll sometimes also miss stuff. So I think the important thing is that you guys let us know, and then we can react rather quickly to something being totally unbalanced. And then we can take it from there. I think these things are going to happen. Game development is like this, where sometimes stuff goes out and it's not really, the balance isn't what it should be. And then the important thing is to just kind of correct it as soon as you can.
So I'm actually reading the YouTube chat here. There's a hot topic, and it kind of shifted directions here a little bit, that I think is a very overwhelmingly popular topic. And I've got some things I'd like to say on it after anything you'd like to add. But since we removed global chat and we've implemented the clan recruitment tool, how do we envision improving the social aspect of the game, or just future social interactions of the game? Obviously, the removal of global chat, which I'll get into some aspects of that in a second. But is there anything that you'd like to add to that on what we can do to improve the social interactivity of the game?
Well, it's a topic that we're talking about, and we're definitely looking to do more work with the clan recruitment tool. It turned out to be quite difficult to get exactly right so that it works really well for everyone. I would kind of recommend that people try it out now because it's actually way better than it was when we released it. There's a lot of work that has gone into it in the back end and in the way it actually finds matches and sort of um, what kind of matches it actually is giving you. So I think it is in a way better place. But we have been talking about this very topic of social interaction, how we make it better, a lot since then.
Mhm.
There are some ideas. I think it's a bit too early to go into those specifically at this point, but we are definitely thinking about it a lot, and it is something that we want to do something about as well.
Okay. And the things that I wanted to add about global chat, and I do want to clear up some misconceptions about why we had removed it. And a lot of players and a lot of the community think that we removed it basically due to wanting to filter out swear words or bad words in the game. And part of it has to do with toxicity about we can't monitor chat 24 hours a day. And given that our game is rated 13 and up, that does mean that we have certain obligations to protect players within that age range of 13 and up. And if we wanted to have, you know, even support agents monitoring the chat 24 hours a day, that would require hundreds of agents for every language that we support. And it becomes increasingly difficult, like especially if someone starts, saying stuff in languages that aren't supported in the game. But the two major reasons why we had to remove global chat was one, whenever there are threats of violence, like let's say someone's threatening to shoot up a school, when we get those reports, we contact the Finnish police. And the Finnish police then contacts the police of those respective countries and do an actual investigation to determine whether or not that these threats are valid. So this is a very time intensive and resource intensive operation because, from one end, yeah, chances are the person is probably trolling, trying to get a reaction out of the community. But us as game developers, we simply cannot take that chance that this person is trolling, this person is joking, because all it takes is one person to be genuinely serious about threatening violence. And if we didn't do anything about that, we would feel partly responsible for not being able to do more to protect people, our players, and people who may be affected outside of this. So we do have a responsibility to ensure that the safety of our players and our community are there at all times. The second one is that, unfortunately, there are a lot of insidious people in the world, and many of them are, predatory upon children. And we need to make sure that we are protecting children from these predatory behaviors. So while removing global chat doesn't eliminate these evils from the world, it at least eliminates them from using our platforms to do it. And that when players play our game, they are a bit more protected and can trust that, these threats of violence and predatory behavior are taken very, very seriously. So removing global chat was done to protect our player base, remove toxicity, and provide a much more enjoyable game environment. Now, we understand that global chat was used for a lot of recruiting and a lot of social interaction, and we can improve it on that front. So that's something that we are looking to improve. But global chat itself, as much as many of you guys loved it, in that form, it will not be coming back. So, anything you want to add to that as well, Eino?
Yeah, I think it's like totally understandable, like the feelings of loss related to the global chat, because it did have its good uses as well, and I think we're definitely looking to return those use cases back into the game somehow. And it would be awesome to hear people's ideas also, like what are the specific things that you miss about global chat that you want to see back, and maybe we can take those and think about them and try to kind of get them back in a better way.
Right, and ultimately still be able to provide the level of protection to our players that they deserve.
Yeah.
Okay. Another hot one is Builder Base. So we released Builder Hall 9, was it last year?
Yeah,
last
I
year
think so.
with the goblin glider, or the hog glider. Um, a lot of people asking, what is the future of Builder Base? Like, we don't have a Builder Hall 10 on the production roadmap at this time, and we're focusing primarily on the home village. And we've seen a huge resurgence in players being active, whether it's clan games, season challenges, clan war leagues. Along with the invention or the introduction of magic items, people are upgrading faster than ever. But with Builder Base, a lot of those people who are big fans of Builder Base feel like, okay, what's next for them?
We haven't forgotten about Builder Base, and I think we took some steps in sort of making Builder Base a bit more fulfilling as an experience in the last update that we did. So we removed the training times, for example. So now you can actually attack without having to worry about your troops or your hero.
Huge quality of life improvement. Oh my god.
Yeah. And I think that's a sort of, even if the main focus isn't on Builder Base, we haven't forgotten about Builder Base, and we are looking at the ways of making that experience a bit more tied together. I think I answered it in my Q&A video, but I think sort of Builder Base lacks a bit of identity in the game. It doesn't really have a good place. It also doesn't have a social kind of end game to it, where you would actually be able to play with someone else and kind of compete or whatever that is. Maybe I don't think we want to add clan wars per se for Builder Base, because we already have clan wars for home village. But maybe there's something else that we could actually do for Builder Base. That said, we have a lot of things already on the roadmap, and we have actually a pretty clear plan for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So it's a question of time as well, and resources, or when do we have a chance to work on Builder Base. But we haven't forgotten about it. We are thinking about it, and there might be different opportunities where we can kind of do some interesting changes along the way to Builder Base. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
So I actually enjoy playing a Builder Base, especially when all of my stuff on the home village is upgrading. And one of the biggest requests we get is, why don't we do like a clan war for Builder Base? And I think players have to understand that Builder Base is meant to be head to head. And if you did a clan war type thing, that means you'd have to ensure that your opponents are all online at the same time. And that kind of makes logistically impossible, especially if you are competing against someone in a different time zone. But if you did it asymmetrically, where it's not head to head, then it's not really any different from normal clan wars. So it does need to be something that has its own identity, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. And I think it's totally possible to come up with a super cool game mode, which is like a social war for Builder Base that works within the synchronous model where you're online at the same time. But and if we had infinite time, it would be a no-brainer to do something like that. But we always have to look at kind of balance different things against other things, and we don't have limitless time. So that just we haven't found an idea that it's so meaningful that we want to do it right now. And I think it will just kind of we'll kind of let it simmer and think about it a little bit more. And I'm sure it actually will come together at some point where we go this is it. Now we know.
And time is the one resource we never seem to have enough of.
Too many things to do, too little time.
So before we get to the questions from the chat, I got one more hot topic. Hero AI. What's up with that? What's going on there? Why are the heroes always acting so funky? It's just Eino's stalling technique when it's a difficult question. He has to take a drink.
Well, I think someone's at the door. I might have to go.
Don't leave me alone to answer this question.
Well, you asked it. I think the short answer to that is that troop and hero AI is a very tricky thing to get right, and still in a mobile game where you have limited calculation cycles available to actually solve the problem. and you have a lot of moving pieces on the board with walls and buildings. There's 300 wall pieces in the game, and all of those need to be considered. And then the server has to also keep up with all this. So it's just the pathfinding problem is a tricky one to solve in a satisfying way in a game like this. So the hero AI is trying to do the best it can, and we actually have done a lot of improvements, if you remember, in the past year or so. And this is due to the designer that Darian mentioned, Petri. He was the first person brave enough to start touching the AI after several years of no one actually touching it, because it's so complex and so intimidating a piece of code. So Petri is to thank for all the improvements that have been done to the AI. So work still remains, okay? Like it's still not perfect, and we are constantly kind of looking at it and trying to identify good ways of making it better while still having it work.
So next time you feel like yelling at the warden for doing something, just remember, he's trying his best, all right?
He's totally trying his best. And he's a bit old, so sometimes he forgets. Yeah.
All right, so we've got about 20 minutes left in this stream, so I thought we'd start going over into questions from the chat. And I've had our mods pulling some questions for us. So the first one is from Baseface. Nice name. So, hey guys, thanks for all you do. When do you think we're going to get more clan flag options? They're a bit stale, and we could use a refresher to make our clan look better. So just some more aesthetic options for, I guess, the clan banner.
Great question. I will bring this up with the team. I think there's nothing that prevents us from getting more options of that. It's something that we would just have to invest a bit of time to, but we can definitely take a look, I think.
It's not like we're busy doing other stuff.
No, you have to go, like it's a constant thing, you know. It's like everything goes into the big list.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff in the big list, and then you go and look at the big list and go like, yeah, let's do those things. And yeah, it might take some time, but it's good to get ideas in. And this sounds like something that we could do in between, just kind of sneak it in when we have a little bit of time.
And to everybody who's watching, whenever we make a new feature or working on a new update, we basically have a giant shopping list of things we would like to do once the core features of an update are finished. And it's kind of like a proverbial shopping list. Many of these are quality of life improvements. Some of them may be, new levels for something, or just visual changes, things that we would like to get to one day. And during the development process, we have to prioritize not just which of these are going to be the most impactful, but do we have the time, or do the developer, like for example, does a programmer have time to implement it? Does an artist have time to draw it and then render it within the game? So we kind of have to prioritize which of these are doable, which of them are worth the amount of time that we're investing into it. I mean, it's not just a matter of, is this easy or is it difficult to do? It ultimately comes down to, as a team, do we feel like this is worth prioritizing?
Yeah, and an art task like this can compete with other art tasks, because we have only a handful of artists in the team and they have limited amount of time. So doing an art task like this will be away from that budget of those people's time.
And clearly, we had to put that waterfall in the game because it looks so freaking cool.
Yeah, I think they were just kind of, it was non-negotiable. It had to go in. It's been so long. But I don't know if people know the story of why it was removed originally, but that was because of memory requirements. We couldn't actually fit it into the memory anymore, so it had to go. And now we've actually added some nice systems that allow us to kind of bring in some assets also as an extra download after the client has been downloaded, and now it's possible to have it. So now that we had these systems in place, we could go and like, hey, we could actually add the waterfall back, and I'm really happy we did.
Yeah, it was funny, like when that update went live, introduction of super troops, so many quality of life improvements, but the number one thing people were commenting on, oh my god, the waterfall is back. That was kind of awesome to see.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, next question from Krabs. Will there ever be a free hero skin for the Silver Pass or free to play players?
Okay, great question. We don't have that on the roadmap yet, but never say never. Maybe for a special anniversary at some point.
Yeah.
I think the challenge with hero skins is that they also take a lot of time to produce. So like that's also a constraint thing where it's just hard to get those produced. But we have some ideas of maybe how we could scale that up. So let's see.
And it's kind of a middle ground that we've also started offering older skins for purchase through gems in the skin shop or the skin UI.
Yeah, I know that not all the players liked it because, like me included, I've bought all the gold passes so far, and I have all the skins, but it was an exclusive thing. But we kind of felt for the people who start afterwards and never had the chance to actually get the skins, and we felt that it's actually still more important to kind of let people enjoy the content, and especially in the case where there are these sets sort of that you can sort of fill up over time. It sucks that if you kind of miss the critical piece and you never have a chance to get it. So we felt that that was more important in the end.
That, and a lot of like the skins that have been offered up so far were at least a year old. Now that's not necessarily a hard timeline on how soon we'll release skins for purchase. And also another caveat is maybe we may not offer up every skin for purchase. Just because it's a year old doesn't mean it's automatically going to become available for purchase through gems. So there is still a certain sense of exclusiveness if you got the skin through the gold pass, because it may not become available again.
I think for the gold pass skins, the plan at the moment is to release them in let's see if we can settle into a regular cadence.
Right.
But roughly a year after they've been released in the gold pass. But that's not something that we will do for the skins that we sold in the shop as an offer. So those exclusives will stay exclusive, and we won't bring them back to gems.
Warrior Queen skin.
Sorry?
The Lunar New Year Warrior Queen skin.
It won't be available for gems, at least, I think.
That one is so cool looking. All right, next question from Time to Clash. So you guys have seen all the future Super Troops. Which is your favorite, and which is the one you are most looking forward to seeing in the game? That's a trick question.
That is a trick question. But I'll say that my favorite, I think it is the Super Witch.
What?
The Super Witch.
I don't even know what that is. Silence. Which is your favorite one so far?
I think the wall breakers are my favorite because they make queen walks easy for a player of my particular skill level.
I have to say, I use the super giants quite a bit just because but I use them for queen walking as well. That punch is just so devastating for walls, and I like the extra tankiness of them. So they provide a little extra shield for my queen walking.
Yeah, they are pretty good as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. From Umarbek Gulamov. Sorry if I butcher that name. I want to know if you guys are working on clan level thing. Like my clan is 19 and it's like 10 level clan, and there is no reason to get clan points. Like basically clan level perks. Like they stop at a certain point, and where do they go from there?
We haven't added new levels to clan perks specifically because we have something else in mind. And it's a secret.
Oh. Oh, should we just leave it at that?
Yeah, I think we can't talk about that too much.
All right. From Chuda04. What happens when there's no more space for buildings? Like, let's say we're working on Town Hall 14 when we run out of map space. What can we do? Well, what are the options from there? Because when we were working on Town Hall 13 and even Town Hall 12, the reason why we weaponized a town hall is because we were trying to take into consideration the amount of real estate available and not like our goal was to try to not overcomplicate things and keep things as simple as possible. And running out of map real estate is one of those things that just kind of creates a little bit of extra complexity. So what do we do when we run out of map space?
That's actually a really good question because it's a very layered issue. There's a lot of different dimensions to that. Of course, there's a thing that we've done this thing in the past where we actually expanded the map, and we can definitely do that. But that comes with a pretty great cost because when you expand the map, you make the travel times from end to end become higher. So it makes the battle slower, and the 3-minute timer is something that we don't really want to change. I think that works pretty nicely. So it might create this problem where the villages get too big to attack and destroy in 3 minutes. That's just one thing. The other thing is that whenever we add more buildings, the complexity increases. And when you're looking at a village and try to take in what's going on, you have to actually be able to read it. And that's already pretty hard at Town Hall 13 and Town Hall 12. Actually, after Town Hall 11 or so, it gets pretty difficult because there's so many buildings. So
right, you should be able to scout it a certain amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. You need to be able to just kind of at glance take in all the important bits about the village and sort of make your attack plan. And it's of course really good players can do it, even if there's a lot of buildings. But for players that are more casual, the game can easily become just overwhelming, and it just is really difficult to play after a certain point. So that's an option that we have to exercise extreme caution with if we ever do it. I think it's possible. It's a possibility, but then we have to kind of take it into account.
So what are some hypothetical options that we could do?
Well, then the other direction is that we could go fewer buildings. So there is this wild idea of actually merging buildings that has been floated around before. So taking, for example, several archer towers and combining them into like a bigger turret type of a structure. And that's a cool idea. We kind of like that idea, but then it has other challenges as well. Like technically, it's a bit difficult to do. It's like, yeah. And also then reading the villages, like all that needs to be worked out, I think. So it's an interesting question. And it is something that we'll have to kind of tackle sooner rather than later, I think. We don't have that many extra building spaces left. And actually, the one interesting thing is also that, the destruction percentage is 100. We have almost 100 buildings in the game already. So.
Right. And so do we start getting into fractions of percentages?
Yeah, exactly. So like if you destroy a building, is it something where you just get a fraction of a percentage, or don't you get a percentage for some buildings? That would be really unsatisfying as well. So great question. Difficult problem.
Yeah. But we're not there yet. Let's see. So I think this one is an interesting question from Antonio. Hi, guys. Can we get bases to practice our attacks on and not have to wait for clanmates to post their bases for us to practice? And the reason why I think it's an interesting question is because this would have a huge impact on the competitive scene.
It is something that we discuss on and off. One other kind of variation is attacking your own base. There's some concerns to that when it comes to the competitive scene and being able to sort of test bases easily, and then sort of copy a base from somewhere and then be able to test it really easily, attack against it to kind of develop a strategy and then use that strategy in a war. So that's something that we always have to watch out for.
Yeah.
And then it's as a feature. Sorry?
Especially because we have an esport with special world finals with prize money on the line, that we need to make sure that no one has an advantage over someone else. So making sure that players are playing as fairly as possible without gaming the system is an absolute must.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's something that we have to sort of preserve, and all the other things that we have done in the game sort of aim to preserve that. So I think that we're going to stay on that path. But yeah, if we find a nice way to make it happen and actually make it a feature that adds a lot of value to the game overall, would be a pretty big thing to do. And we, like with everything, it's better if we can sort of have more bang for the buck, so that we just don't develop a feature for a smaller, although super important part of the community. It's still we want to get something that sort of scales to everyone, or like a lot of people playing the game. So, and those ideas always are a bit more tricky to develop because you have to find the right way to do it.
All right. Oh, this is an interesting one from Gustas R. Hello, guys. Will gold passes always have skin sets like the Clockwork or the Primal? Because the last few skins that we've done, they've been part of a set. But so is the Gladiator set or skins. So do we plan on doing them all sets from now on?
Not exactly. I think there's going to be some skins in between that won't be part of a set, or will belong to a set that was actually introduced in the past, but then not kind of filled out yet.
Like the Autumn Queen or the Winter Queen, adding like a Winter King or...
Yeah, well, who knows? Like some, without going into details, yeah, that's we're going to fill out some of the sets that we introduced in the past.
Let's see. This is kind of more of a suggestion question, going back to the global chat thing. So this is from Nishit Kashyap. Have you guys thought about an interview option? Like when you ask to join a clan, there can be a way to chat a clan member, which brings back kind of a social factor of recruiting and global chat. That kind of partly negates why we removed global chat in the first place, was to avoid certain behaviors. And I think something like this would open the floodgates for those behaviors again. But I think there's a merit of creating some kind of interview UI where you can talk to players that if you want to invite them into your clan or not. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right in saying that it would basically sort of defeat the purpose of why we removed global chat in the first place. But I think there's really nice kind of really nice core to that suggestion that I think is definitely worth sort of thinking about, and we have thought about it. So enabling some kind of a way to have some sort of personality in the either recruitment, or just kind of adding a little bit of communication. That's something we've talked about in the past, so that you can inject a little bit of personality. But the challenge is that we would have to make it in a way where it doesn't actually kind of bring back the same behaviors that we sought to remove.
So the last question before we go on to our little surprise at the end. Given that you've been on the Clash team for 3 years now, what would you say is the most memorable moment for you? Like what? That last time. Yeah.
I think it has to be the time. It was a great day. I came to the office and I got to the studio, and there was this makeup crew, and they made me dress up in this furry suit that's blue, and had some like purple balls in the back. And yeah, that was memorable. I still don't know understand what that was, but
so for just a little bit of background trivia, when we filmed the Town Hall 13 dev video, and for those who saw the video, Eino was dressed up like a champion in the Yeti costume. But what you don't know is that he was also suffering from the flu, and that suit had no ventilation. We're under spotlights to film the dev video. So when he took the costume off, like, I'm surprised Eino didn't pass out from dehydration, because he was just soaked in sweat and just looked miserable the entire time, and not a single complaint. Was just a trooper the entire time. So, man, I take off my hat and give you so much respect for just tolerating that. Like, they just put false eyelashes and pretty makeup on me to be the royal champion, and you were dressed up in that giant heat suit.
Yeah, well, like I said, memorable. Never forget.
I think mine was probably the World Championship Finals in Hamburg last year. Especially the after party when we announced to them that we were going to be doing Town Hall 13, and just seeing the audience, the content creators, and that community, just everybody kind of, and it sounds cliche when I say this, but everybody celebrating that their mutual enjoyment and passion for Clash, being able to talk with the developers, like how many of the content creators wanted to talk with Petri, with the other artists, other designers, like just for them to be able to meet the development team was such a touching and special moment. And given the current travel situation with the coronavirus, like, I'm hoping that does not impact our World Finals this year, because I'm really looking forward to just seeing the look on everybody's faces again. It was such an memorable moment in Clash history.
Yeah, it was, but like definitely that is in the top probably for me as well. But yeah, who knows? This year we're running the qualifiers online, so we got those covered, and then we'll take a look at towards the end of the year. And if we have to play the finals online, then that's something we'll do. I think it's most important thing is that we keep people safe and until
Absolutely.
this sort of passes over.
So we reached the end of the Town Hall hour, but before we go, we did have one special sneak peek coming up for what's coming in the next update. Now, we're not going to tell you what exactly this is or what it's supposed to be. We'll leave that to you guys to try to figure it out. But here is an image of something to come. So, what do you think that is? Let us know in the comments. Let us know on Facebook, on Twitter, on the forums, on Reddit, what exactly you think that is that's going into the game. But it is a sneak peek of something coming. So anyway, hopefully you guys just kind of enjoyed hanging out with us for the last hour. Thank you to Eino for just kind of chilling and just kind of giving us some insight into Clash of Clans development and kind of peeling back the curtain and discussing some hot topics. Hope you guys will all stay safe out there. Your safety is the absolute most important thing to us. We hope you maintain that social or that responsible social distancing so nobody gets infected. But we want to let you guys know that we're doing the same. We're working from home, but we're still going to be pumping out fresh new content for you guys. And hopefully that sneak peek will tide you over and so we start doing the next round of sneak peeks for the next update. Any closing comments, Eino?
Yeah, I would love to just say that everyone should clash on.
Clash on, guys.
It's super hard to sync that up over the latency and everything, so let's go with that.
We'll be out of sync this time. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.